All right, good morning, everyone. This is Internet Resources for Writers. It's our very first panel of the day, so I hope everybody has their coffee ready. We have Matt Wires. Let's see, we have Bobby Nash. I'm clicking through everybody's photos. Jared, do you pronounce your last name Millet?
Miette, actually.
Miette, okay.
Completely improper French, but still something.
Fantastic.
Like
We have Patricia Correll and we have Teresa Howard. So everyone, if you want to go ahead and get started, you're more than welcome to. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to Internet Resources for Writers.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. I have a question to start us off. Is there anything that you can think of that you do not use the internet for? And I use it so much for my writing that it's kind of hard to think of something specific.
There are some times where I will sometimes, I mean, the internet's great for looking up things and, but sometimes when I try to get a feel for what a place is like, I will sometimes send off for brochures from that place, just to see how, not only to see how it is, but to see how they present it. States present themselves in certain ways, and sometimes I find that helpful. But you can probably still get that information off the internet as well. But whenever I travel, I like to stop and pick up brochures and things I can clutter up my office with that might come in handy later.
I do still use books a lot for my research, but the internet has been an enormous resource. And I think a lot of writers would agree that it's made things so much easier. You just have to be careful that you're finding correct information, though.
Yeah, if you're doing any kind of historical writing or historical setting, the internet helps, but you can still find some things buried in library archives that will just help you an awful lot. I was doing research for a story set like in Washington, D.C. in the 50s, and while I was working at the Birmingham Public Library and in the Southern History Department, I found a book about Washington, D.C. printed in the 1950s with pictures of everything in the city. And I was like, okay, I'll just move this to my office for a couple months. So
I created a Pinterest account not too long ago, and one of the things I like to do with it is search through different accounts. Most of what I follow, they're these pictures of abandoned locations around the world, or old structures that are falling in, or obscure locations that, for example, I did a little bit of research on the Prague astronomical clock. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's just a fascinating mechanism, one, and then also the story behind it. It's hundreds of years old, the politics of the local area. But what I found, the point being found using Pinterest, is that I'm flooded with these random images, and the images themselves will sometimes inspire an idea, but it also provides an instant resource to research into whatever it is I'm looking at. And because I had never heard of the Prague astronomical clock before I saw a picture of it, I was like, wait a minute, I need to look this up. This is very fascinating, and it makes it easy to weave it into a story when you're being presented with something you never knew to look for.
Yeah, and the beauty of the internet and helping with stuff like that is when you do find interesting things that you want to learn more about or to get a firsthand perspective on. The internet makes it so easy to find people that live in those countries or live in those places that you can ask someone a question about. Hey, I've never been to Prague, but what's it like if I go, and they can kind of give you an on the ground or a personal feel for the location. Looking at pictures will tell you what it looks like, but someone that lives there can tell you what the weather's like or what the yeah, it's oppressively hot, you know, in the summers here, or it's the whatever. And so, yeah, the internet's a wonderful resource for that.
Yeah, it's one joke in my writers group out here is, you know, like if the FBI were to raid your internet search history and you're a writer, what are they going to turn up?
I'm worried about that sometimes.
I actually did kind of worry about that a little bit. I write a series about an FBI agent, and so I met a real life FBI agent. And I said, "Man, I'd love to like talk to you and ask questions." And he goes, "Well, we have a procedure." And so I'm like, "Okay." So we go through the procedure. So I know that the FBI went through and did all kinds of searches on me. So apparently it didn't raise any flags because they still let me come in and interview them and talk to them, and I got a lot of great information. And so yeah, so I guess that actually, Teresa, that answers your question too, because it's meeting people is also very good for firsthand accounts on how people do their jobs. Because I've talked with like FBI agents, SWAT team members, cops, lawyers, judges, forensic photographers, etc., about their jobs, and have been able to take that firsthand information and apply it to character traits or story ideas or whatever. And that's information that I probably could have found on the internet, but getting that firsthand appeal, you know, from someone who does go to crime scenes can give you that extra thing that makes it feel more real because it's real for them. So yeah, so I love to interview people and talk to people about their jobs as much as possible.
I guess since we're talking about internet resources, and we want to get a little more specific, and we're talking about being able to contact people and ask them about things. For anyone out there who might be listening in and saying, "Well, where do I get to do that?" It's not active all year round, but National Novel Writers Month's website, nanowrimo.org, NANOWRIMO. Let me stick that in the chat for anyone who hasn't been there before. This is the competition, or really a challenge, that's held every year in November. You pledge to write 50,000 words starting November 1st, ending by November 30th, and if you finish 50,000 words, you win. But the cool thing about NaNoWriMo is the forums on the website, and like there's forums for different genres of writers, whatever, but there's also a research forum where you can go in and post any question relating to your book. And since there are hundreds of thousands of people now who do this every year and who haunt those forums, some people will know the answer to anything you ask. Like, I remember the first year I did it, I was like, I have a character with an Australian accent. How do I write an Australian accent? And I posted that, and people in Australia answered. And it's like, well, it's not the accent, it's more about the attitude. And, you know, just explained a few things that kind of helped me out. But you can ask, like, what is it like to live with a certain disability? What is it like to live in a certain area? What was it like being a child of the 60s or the 70s? You know, so any kind of information like that. NaNoWriMo, if you're writing in November, is a great place to just go and dive and meet people and find people you can ask about these things. And some of those people might also become your critique partners, which is what happened to me. So highly recommend that website, nanowrimo.org, and do it. This
is a question I'm interested in myself, and I'm sure other people will be interested. What do you use, what sites do you use to promote your books or your career?
I'm pretty active on social media, so I mostly do it there. I do have a Facebook author page, and I'm very active on Twitter. Once I got onto Twitter, it was a few years ago. I'd resisted for a long time. Once I got on, suddenly I started selling books. There's a huge writers community there, and a lot of the times we'll buy each other's books, do reviews. Promoting your work on Twitter is really easy. There's also a huge readers community. You just have to know what hashtags to use to connect to the maximum number of people. So I'd say Twitter has probably been the biggest boon for me in trying to promote my own work.
What are some of the hashtags that you find the most helpful for that?
There's writing community, writers cafe, reading community. Whatever genre you're working on, there's a hashtag for it. But you also have to connect with people and actually respond to their tweets, talk to them, really just make friends and become a presence. And you can't just only promote your work because nobody wants to see that constantly on their feed. You really have to engage with people.
Yeah, I think sometimes I think we some people forget about the social part of social media.
Right.
Yeah, and so, but that's good. No, yeah, it's a good thing to be able to do that back and forth with people, and yeah, you're not just a selling machine, and there are ways to promote your work that's not a buy my book post. I use social media a lot as well, but I found that sharing things about my writing day helps like build interest in the projects I'm working on without forcibly trying to sell it. I found that's pretty helpful. Sharing the reviews when someone leaves a review, promoting other people's stuff. I find that I try to do that at least once a day. I try to promote something that's not mine. Things like that are helpful. So social media is a great one. You know, I have something on all of them, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, MeWe, you know, if it's out there, I post on the author database. I can leave little posts there, Booktown, things like that. But I also do a lot of conventions, podcasts, interviews, things like we're doing now are great ways to reach people. Newsletter, you know, I also have Pinterest and Patreon, and so so there's a lot of different ways that I can reach people that way. But I also try to reach out to groups that are not necessarily internet based. I do keep the local newspaper informed. I keep the local radio stations informed. The local TV. It doesn't always go anywhere, but every once in a while they'll call you in for an interview, or we got a little space to fill. We'll put something in here. And so keeping them informed of what's going on as part of your press releases and your press, you know, your newsletter or, you know, things like that. I find those helpful. So anything you can do to just kind of get the word out.
Are there any other specific websites people use for aspects besides research? I guess for like connecting with people in the publishing industry, for instance. Any preferences people have?
I use dutrope.com, and it allows you to search for publishers, and you can key in and be really specific about what your manuscript is like, and they'll bring up some fits. And you can also keep track of your publications, where you've got different things submitted. I started a long time ago when it was free, and I think I pay like $5 a month for it now, but it's a good resource because that and Ryland.com, because they tell you what the publishers, especially of short stories and anthologies, are looking for and how much they pay.
Yeah, I also use Ryland. I'll put it in the chat. So
actually, I'm doing that right now. I got it.
Okay, and also horrortree.com. If you write horror, they have other markets besides horror listed as well, but they have new stuff every day.
Yeah. And if you're on Facebook, I don't have links right in front of me, but there are several open call groups where publishers go in, and it's all it is. Publishers go in and say, we're looking for this. And usually they're broke up by genre. So you can you can search open call, you know, sci-fi, open call, fantasy, or whatever. And you can find where publishers are posting that way as well.
Yeah. For me, the one I found lately that I've switched to using for everything is the submission grinder at Diabolical Plots. Let me put that one up. But it's a lot like Duotrope, only it's free, and it's maintained by the diabolical plots fiction site and they ask for donations. But yeah, they just list hundreds and thousands of markets, and you create an account. You list all your things and just hit search, and for each one, it'll find all the markets that fit that parameters and list them from the highest paying down. So you can just work down the list for each one, and it's nice because it's nice because the people who use that site will log when they make submissions, when they're rejected. So you can watch each market and see like when they do a bunch of rejections or acceptances, and you can see where you are in the chain. And you can sometimes see when you made it past the slush pile reader and that you actually get to the editor's desk, which is
nerve-wracking.
Yeah, because I have a few right now that's like that where I've seen, oh, they're rejecting stories that were sent in after mine. Well, okay. So it's always good tools. Horror Tree I want to look at in particular because I've had a few stories that would probably go up that avenue that I might be able to use. Okay. Like the fiction and the publishers, there's also a few sites for finding agents out there. Has anyone had experience with any of those in particular that you'd like to mention, or?
Not really. I have not had the best of luck in this particular arena. A lot of times I just look for agents and then go through and actually look at the agents' sites to see who might be a good fit for what I write. But I've had no success with the agent hunt or that to the point I don't even try anymore. Mm-hmm. And but I do know that there are sites out there that they also do this for publishers where they kind of track, good behavior, bad behavior, mm-hmm. like Predators and Editors or Writer Beware. Or I think there's a third one. And I know they do that for agents as well, where people will say, here's the experience I had with this agent or with this publisher or with this publicist or whatever. And they kind of can give you people's feedback. But yeah, that's the only real experience I've had. So.
I remember going through the Writer's Digest, the big book that comes out every year of markets, and they have agents and different markets in there. If you use that, make sure you check out their websites because Writer's Digest doesn't update year to year. And so some of them may not be accepting submissions at that time, that kind of thing. So you really have to do your own research too.
Yeah, I've just recently hit the stage for one of my books where I'm starting to look for representation. So the classic website that I went to was Agentquery.com. And Agentquery, while it has a lot of good information on how to send out, formulate, and what to expect from the agent hunt process, when I started looking at the actual agent listings, I was finding a lot of the information was badly out of date. So I kind of like read that site for the how-to manual, but then I found another one, Querytracker.net. Let me put that in I'm just copying and pasting a lot of stuff into the chat here. Querytracker.net seems to have a lot more up-to-date and exhaustive listing of current working agents and who's accepting submissions and what they're looking for. So, and there's another one I want to mention. I remember finding this years ago, and I'm still going back and reading it. Queryshark.blogspot.com. This is a blog. It doesn't seem to be as active as it used to be, but all the archives are still there. But it's the agent Janet Reed. And as a public service, she will eviscerate your sample query letter on the internet for all to see and show you what's wrong with it. So if you're willing to have your writing torn apart in public for the internet, you can send after you've read all of her archives and see all the mistakes she's already pointed out, you can send stuff to her and she may or may not help you there and post online. Even if she doesn't, you can read through all of her past blog entries on what's wrong with past queries to agents and not make the same mistakes that she points out on that.
There are also a few agents that do blogs where they talk about the different type of queries they get, what works, what doesn't, and those are good informational ones. I think Greg Brantford does one. There's a few other. I mean, I'm sure if you search literary agent blogs, you can find them. But those are good too for seeing what they're getting deluged with, because, you know, like anything else, they probably have a checklist. It's like, if it's this, we, you know, it gets, you know, automatically rejected for reasons. You can give yourself a leg up by reading what they're going, man, every time I get one of these, we reject it. And you can go, ooh, hey, I'm doing that. Let me change, you know. So there's information out there that way where they're talking about the various things that they see on a day-to-day basis that can help you to kind of massage your query letter or massage your manuscript, you know, so it's more palatable for them. Kind of like we do for publishers. You know, publishers say, we want it in this format. Sometimes agents have that too. They don't necessarily say it, but if you read on their blog what they're looking for, that can help you get a leg up, I think.
I see there's a question.
Do you have anything that we haven't talked about, Matthew?
Actually, yeah, I was gonna ask about the writing process itself. Is there anything? I have a couple of thoughts in mind, but is there anything that you've seen, read, that you feel is productive in improving? You know, before you get to the publishing stage, the craft itself that's online based.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that helped me finish my very first novel that has never seen the light of day, but it helped me, like, for the first time, do a book from the beginning to the end and finish it, was an outlining technique from Randy Ingermanson called the Snowflake Method, and that's posted online. Let me see if I can find it. His site is advancedfictionwriting.com. He's was one of the co-authors from the Writing Fiction for Dummies book for that series. But this article on the Snowflake Method of outlining and designing a plot is up there for free, and it worked miracles for me. Just to get a first novel down from beginning to end and have it structured. So much so that I wrote to Mr. Ingermanson and got his permission to teach his method. So I did a few workshops. He said, as long as you give me credit. So I always give him credit. Yeah, I highly recommend someone just starting out and just doesn't know how to structure a story, where to go, read that article. And it's one of many outlining techniques that's out there. I've used some other ones than that since then, but is a good starting place for a new writer who wants to get from the start to the finish of a story. I highly recommend reading that article. So, one of my favorites, if you're, I mean, I guess everybody's heard of Brandon Sanderson. Ironically, on YouTube, and he every year he teaches a course at BYU on writing. The entire course is available on YouTube. And actually, I think there's multiple versions of it because he teaches it every year. But he goes through his process. He goes through what's been beneficial to him down through the decades now that he's been honing his craft, and his concepts on plot, creating expectations, making promises to your reader. I think they're helpful to anyone. They're certainly helpful to me. So. And it's on YouTube. You just go to his account and you can find it, but it's probably other versions of it as well. Does Brandon Sanderson's class on YouTube?
He's a part-time professor at BYU, so I assume he lives in that area. But he teaches a course apparently the course has been taught every year since the 80s. He actually took it himself when he was in school, I think in the 90s.
Yeah.
And he took it over after, not necessarily after he became famous, but after he was established in the industry. And it's a wonderful resource just to pull up YouTube and get that sort of information.
That's interesting. BYU also publishes a fairly good science fiction magazine called Leading Edge. So I guess they have a really good science fiction community over there.
Has anyone tried, I keep seeing these ads on my Facebook for something called the Master Class.
Oh, the Neil Gaiman one?
Like Neil Gaiman, Judy Blume, all these famous authors. Has anybody tried one of those?
I haven't done one myself, but I have a friend that did one and did the Neil Gaiman one, and she was very impressed with it. That it's kind of like it's like it's like they're teaching just like a class, and she said it found it very informative, but I haven't actually done one myself.
See, I think Madeline said she had a question if we had when we had time. So.
Yeah, I do have a question. So I am not a writer, but listening to all of y'all, and you're just spouting off all of these, what I assume to be wonderful resources. But I have a question, you know, especially in the times we're living in with social media being as prevalent as it is, and kind of having your feeds inundated with probably information about COVID, protests, all of these things that are weighing very heavily on people's minds. How do you disconnect, and how do you step away from your internet resources and kind of recharge? I know that sounds very opposite to what y'all are talking about today, but I was just wondering if there's ever a time that you're like, okay, let me go read through one of these trade publications, something that is not online. Do you find yourself like getting distracted by all of these internet resources or having a hard time keeping up with them? So I'd be interested to hear about that.
Well, you know, I've actually been successful at just automatically snoozing any kind of horrible content in my Facebook feed, so that now my Facebook feed is nothing but nerd news and cat photos. So.
Well, yeah, I think anything on the internet has the potential of being a rabbit hole that you can get lost in, you know. Especially, you know, when you get to where, click this link, you go here and click the, you know. Yeah, I have a friend that referred to it the other day as that going through his Facebook feed was what he called doom scrolling now, because everything was gloom and doom, you know. And I'm kind of the same way. I like, okay, I don't want to hear this all the time, so I'm muting stuff and trying to keep it to where my feed is a little more of stuff I'm interested in hearing about my friends are doing, or things like that, as opposed to the "we're all going to die" posts. So yeah, so it is a rabbit hole you can go down. Research is as well. I mean, you know, when we're talking about going to all these sites and researching, you can really lose a day if you're not careful. So yeah, it's just, you just have to go, okay, time to push away. Usually that's when my back starts hurting after sitting at the desk for so long that I'm like, okay, time to get up. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge problem for me because I'm a big news junkie, so I could just sit and doom scroll for hours at a time. Luckily, I'm also a very organized, routine-oriented person, so I make a to-do list every day, and one of the things on my to-do list is write. And I can't go to sleep until everything is crossed off the to-do list. So that ensures that I will take some time every day to sit down and write and just turn off the laptop and put away the phone for just a little bit.
One of my hobbies is genealogy, and I do a lot of research, and I do work for other people. And it's easy. It's like working a puzzle. So if I get just frustrated with my writing, I'll start doing that. And because to me, it's easier, it becomes a trap because it's giving me satisfaction. It's like working a puzzle, but it's also taking me away from what I need to be doing, especially when my editor's wanting something back.
I usually just take a nap. I just check out and go to bed for a while. But it's probably not going to work for everybody. But one thing I do need to regularly clear my head, and I love driving in the country. You know, getting away from the computer, getting away from the phone, all of that mental stimulation that goes along with that, and just or even just go into a park, something where I can limit my human contact, and certainly limit my contact with whatever's going on in social media or the media in general. I think that's I think it's healthy for anyone, but I think it's healthy for especially for people that might spend a lot of time in front of a computer, a lot of time sitting and delving into work that's very taxing mentally.
Yeah, we do that. We do that as well. We go out. We try to take at least 1 to 2 days a week and just go, get out of the house, have lunch at the park. I live close to a state park. We can go have lunch by the lake, or just go out and ride around for a while. Especially, and even now with people social distancing, you can go for rides. You don't have to go anywhere. You just go, and it just gets you. It gets you out of the house. You know, as writers, it's a very solitary job, but we're all usually inside a room staring at the exact same, wall and computer for hours on end. And I write about people killing each other and murders and death and explosions and all this bad. So it is nice to get away from that from time to time and just kind of get out and realize there's go look at pretty clouds or pretty scenery, and just it kind of refreshes me to come back and work again.
Even before I was writing, I had like a sanity maintenance budget built into my daily schedule routine. Have to spend so much time listening to music, have to spend so much time reading fiction that is just not related to anything else I'm doing, Limit my TV watching, because that's like bad in high doses. But
I listen to a lot of podcasts when I write, and honestly, I like the murder podcast the best. But there's a lot of writing ones too. Do you guys have any podcasts that you would recommend for writers?
I haven't listened to myself, but I keep being told that I should be listening to one called You Should Be Writing.
Mm-hmm. I think that's Brandon Sanderson's too, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it is. Come to think of it, yeah. I don't do enough podcasts.
Yeah, I don't listen to it because I can't listen to them and work at the same time. But I've been on several podcasts. Most of them aren't just writing related, though. It's usually, something else related, or they're just interviewing or talking about it. That's the topic for this episode. But I have looked. There are a lot of writing ones out there, but I really haven't had a time to sit down and listen to a lot of them. But I do find them fascinating as a writer, approaching them to be guests. The way that different shows kind of have a different focus, and so one is more interested in the craft of writing, one's more interested in just tell us about your book. So I like the different ones, and the ones that really let you talk about how you do what you do. I think I enjoy those the best.
Speaking of just kind of blending the last two topics, maybe, I don't know. If you're familiar with Chris Fox, who is a pretty, I guess, a well-known self-published author now, he has a regular YouTube series. I think he usually puts out something like once a week. But much of what he's doing promotion in the process, but much of what he's talking about is encouragement for individuals dealing with self-publishing, the industry aspect of it, as well as the writing. It's particularly interesting to me because he has issues with depression, which I identify with, and periodically he just kind of speaks to me in a way that most people doing that might not be able to connect with, because he, I guess, understands what it's like when you when you're bogged down and you're bogged down in your work, and mentally you might be having a difficulty. Maybe your life is perfectly fine, but your brain is not helping you out, that sort of thing. So just listening to someone else discuss through those things and talk about that, and then also see that they can be successful, I think is very very encouraging. So sometimes I'll just pull up one of his videos just to get a little boost for a few minutes.
What was his name again? You said it was Chris
Fox.
Foss?
Fox.
Fox. Okay, because I was thinking, okay. Let me write that. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, because there's an artist with a very similar name. So I was thinking the other guy for a second, but no. Okay, I'll look him up. That sounds really good. Another internet tool for writers that helped get me back on track with writing, because I stopped for about 5 years and got back into it, but meetup.com, because we tend to need support groups. We need writers groups. We need somewhere to be and talk to people who are going through what we're going through. And sometimes is critique, and some of the groups are just, cheer you on. But there are loads of writers groups that you can find on meetup.com. And even though we're social distancing, I bet you can find them meeting virtually. I tried several here in Atlanta, where I am now, until I hit the right one that I clicked with. And before the lockdown started, we would every 2 weeks meet at a pub and critique each other's work on. That group that I found would critique each other's work online and then just meet in the pub and talk. So we're just meeting online and talking and still doing that. But meetup.com is a great place for writers to go find like-minded people at the same stage in our careers, or someone help you up, or you can help other people lift up. And just, we need socialization with our tribe. So Twitter is a way to do it. Meetup is a way to do it. I highly recommend that as a way to find a group in your area or just somewhere in the world that you can join in.
Yeah. So yeah, I enjoy the group. I haven't done a group in a while, but I've enjoyed those where you get that instant feedback from, and I find that, I love that. I find that very helpful to have people that you can, have some instant back and forth with about what you've written and realize what works, what doesn't work. And you're right. The camaraderie is nice too.
Looks like we have a question. Do any of you use task tracking services? Are there any specifically for writers? I'm not sure what that is, so no, I don't. That's
task
probably
tracking,
so slow.
Are you? Do you mean like a time management service?
Yes, I guess I was thinking of Patricia's to-do list. And I was wondering if there were any specifically for writers, but Jared, you kind of spoke to that with your meetup groups, especially I'm sure if there's someone in there who knows you really well that's like, hey, have you written what? Oh, really?
Meetup.com.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about that one a little bit?
Sure. I mentioned it earlier, and they help you decide where to send, or give you options of where to send a manuscript. And then when you submit it, say you've got 10 short stories, you can list them, and they keep track of how they're doing, when they get accepted or rejected. And you can look and see, well, I sent this one here already. I don't, need to send it somewhere else. It keeps me from getting things mixed up.
I had for a while it wasn't an online resource, but for a while there, I was doing an Excel spreadsheet to kind of keep track of things. Mm-hmm. I got to where I don't update it nearly often enough. Open projects, I have a dry erase board here on the office wall that I just keep, deadlines written down, things like that. Open projects, I have a calendar on the desk where I write deadlines on it. So without me looking for them, I have reminders of deadlines all around me so I don't miss them. But I don't have anything online that I use for that.
With Dutrope, it will tell you the date that you submitted, what their expected return time is, that you should hear something. And then whenever you check, it'll tell you, okay, this is when you should hear, you're past that date, you're before that date, you've got the, it kind of keeps up with it.
While we're talking about this, I'm just doing a quick Google search to find out time management for writers. I found a few blog entries. One recommends something called Dayboard, dayboard.co as just a schedule maintenance. And of course, just some other calendars of Google Calendar. Something called Focus at Will is one tool that I've used when actually having to produce new content. Is I'm a big fan of the Pomodoro Technique, whereas you have like a timer and you train yourself that while the timer is counting, all you can do is write, and you have to write. And then when a timer stops, if you're in the middle of a sentence, you stop and you take a break for 10 minutes or whatever. You come back and start the timer again and keep going. But that's just it. I don't know if that word would work for everyone, but for me, I'm a burst writer. I can't write in constant long stretches, but I write a lot of words in really tight bursts. So I just I have like a timer up my computer that I don't use for anything but writing. So when the timer starts going, I write. When it stops, I stop. And then, as soon as my break period is over, it's like start again. So
yeah, I actually use the same technique, and it's been super helpful to me. I think it's 25 minutes and then a 5-minute break, 25 minutes and a 5-minute break, and then you take like a 15-minute break or something.
Yeah.
So you can do it in 25-minute stretches for as long as you need to.
Right. You just adjust for whatever your writing speed is. Mine is 15. I'm not good enough for 25. I'm out at 15. But
I handwrite all my manuscripts, so I need a little more time because it's slow.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah, the one useful life skill I learned in high school was how to type really, really fast. So,
That's very helpful.
yes. One other internet resource that I've been, I haven't used it myself lately, but in my early years of writing, I did, and I'm probably going to get back into it now some more, is there's a website called Absolute Write. And when you go to, let me see if I can find it here. Did I bring it up on my? Anyway, it's absolutewrite.com. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's it. Let me put it in the thing. But the site itself just has information for writers and things. But the gold mine at Absolute Write is the forums. You create an account, you log in, and there's this old school bulletin boards where authors can post questions, and they just keep the archives forever. So if you have a question, you can either like about, say, a publisher that you're thinking of spending to, and you want to know, are these people legit, or is this company selling the service a scam or what? You could ask the question yourself, or you could just search their archives, and someone else may have already asked the question and discussed it, and you can find other authors' experiences. And I know that from time to time, like agents and publishers will pop up on these boards and say, hey, I'm this agent or this publisher, ask me questions. Kind of like a Reddit Ask Me Anything stream, And so that's one kind of gathering place online for authors I recommend and I always have, is absolutewrite.com. Sign up for the forums and just go in there and lurk or ask questions or answer questions or whatever you want to do.
There are a few. It's harder to find them, but there are some Facebook groups that are pretty good for that, where it's all discussion. It's not authors promoting; it's authors asking questions, or kind of giving back and forth. Where you can ask questions there, or you can see other people that are asking questions. It's a good way to meet people and meet other authors and have a little back and forth. But it's just the finding of them, because a lot of the writer-centric Facebook groups tend to just be promotion groups. And so
yeah. I can recommend 20 Books to 50K, which is a Facebook group. It's huge. I've really been trying to ramp up my marketing lately, and there's 1 million people there, and they're all willing to share their experiences and give advice and stuff like that. So I'll put that in the chat too.
A question from Madeline: are we going to have access to this chat, or should I go ahead and copy and paste it all into my Word document right now?
You can go ahead and copy and paste it. I'll probably do the same as well, just in case one of our Zoom settings is off. And I can, of course, email it to all of you, or have Melanie email it. So we will have access to it. So we are ending the near the end of our time. So do y'all have any closing remarks? Give me just your number one resource.
Closing remark, I don't know if that's the right word for what I was going to say, but this is not a substitute for a human editor, especially not a professional one. But I love prowritingaid.com for refining your work, especially if it is a subscription service, but if you need to refine something pretty quickly, especially if you write a lot, it's much quicker turnaround than an editor. So it's helpful in a lot of areas. You basically plug it in like a Word document and run whatever you're writing through numerous filters. So I think it's worth the price to me. So I just wanted to, if people aren't familiar with that, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. That's all I have. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'll just do the ad one more time. As an author who's had my success mainly in the short fiction markets, Duotrope, like Teresa's been mentioning, is a great site, and I also have to give love to the submission grinder at diabolicalplots.com. They're both great resources for finding markets for short fiction and getting your work out there.
I would say I don't have a specific site, but if you are, especially, I think most of what we're talking about is people that are already writing and getting, they're finished. For people that are just getting started writing or are still in the process, there are a lot of sites that will show you how a manuscript should be formatted. There's a lot of great sites on style and things like that. That is important to publishers, using the right fonts, using the right size. If you send them something in Comic Sans format, size 16-point font, you're going to get rejected without them reading a word. So there are sites out there that'll show you what a manuscript should look like, that will say, here, use these fonts, use this size. Those are very important and can help you clear a first hurdle by making your book look professional.
I'll say 20 books to 50K on Facebook again. Great Facebook group. Twitter has been a lot of fun and really useful for me. And if you write darker stuff, horrortree.com for sure.
I'm learning a lot listening, and my best advice would be to research where you're going to send your submission. I mean, we've said this several times, but they're the publisher, and if they want to be picky and only accept it this way, change it to that format. Sometimes you just have to.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, I guess thank the Hoover Library for letting us sit here and muse about this. I know I've learned a lot here, but I've got a whole bunch of notes myself. I'm about to join this Facebook group. So
That's really great. I was hoping y'all would learn a lot from each other too. And I'm going through and making sure that this chat is saved. I'm actually just going to do some screenshots of it in case anything slips through the cracks. But I guess thank you so much for everybody attending this morning. I know, like I said, for some of us it was pretty early, but not all of us got to sleep in, Bobby. But we will be posting this to our YouTube later. And let's see, I'm going to go ahead and grab the rest of the chat. And thank you for attending. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.